Ever seen someone unravel in real time? The room smells faintly of burnt coffee and old paper. Fluorescent lights buzz like a nervous heartbeat. You'd think someone would notice. But no. Everyone's staring down at their laptops, phones, or the floor, pretending the president isn't slouched back in his chair, eyes closed, nap mode fully engaged. Here's the thing, power doesn't wait. And right now, it's slipping through his fingers. Staff shuffled papers, avoided eye contact, whispered rumors ricocheted off the walls. A folder slid from the edge of the podium, nobody reached for it. Tiny misstep, yet somehow it mattered. You feel it in your gut. The tension presses against your chest like the weight of every unspoken word in the room. Notice that subtle twitch in the deputy chief's eye. The one that says, I could be next if this collapses. Do you see it? And this is where most people miss the danger. It's not in the grand gestures, the speeches, the televised meetings. It's in the tiny decisions, the unsent emails, the misread chart, the whispered rumor about a policy leak that might, or might not, exist. Every pause compounds. Momentum punishes hesitation. Fluorescent lights flicker like a countdown. The air tastes metallic, like the first hint of a storm. You can hear the soft scrape of chairs as aides shift, the quiet murmur of side conversations, too hushed to catch but loud enough to echo in your skull. And here's where it gets messy. One aide leans toward another, whispering so softly it's almost polite, almost professional, but the words are venomous. Micro-decisions become micro-assassinations. The president stirs. A slow blink, a yawn that stretches too long. Control feels certain, until reality decides otherwise. You can almost hear the room recalibrate, like a machine sensing a missing gear. His allies exchange glances, half calculation, half panic. The more he tries to command, the faster the room slips from his control. Ever feel that? That twinge in your chest when something is about to break and you're too close to stop it? That's what's happening here. Someone knocks over a coffee cup. A sharp crack on the marble countertop. Brown liquid pools and creeps toward the corner of a confidential folder. Nobody notices. Or maybe nobody wants to. Every small action, the phone left unlocked, the misplaced chart, the brief hesitation in a reply, adds to the storm building in real time. Momentum is fragile. Perception is currency. Power is rarely what it seems. Ambition can be beautiful, until it blinds you. And right now, ambition in this room is scrambling, biting, trying to find a foothold while the central figure naps. Notice that, a senior aide mutters, almost to themselves. We're standing on top of a volcano. The words hang, but no one moves. Eyes dart toward the door as if an escape route could magically appear. It won't. The president's eyes flicker open, but not fully. He murmurs something inaudible. An aide leans in. Pause. Another microdecision, step closer, step back, pretend you didn't hear it. Each choice ripples outward. Each ripple has consequences. Every heartbeat, every shuffle, compounds. And paradoxically, the more you try to steer, the faster reality asserts itself. And then the whispers get louder. Emails unsent for hours suddenly feel urgent. A document misfiled in haste becomes critical. Someone laughs nervously, too sharply, too early, and the sound ricochets like a gunshot. Everyone knows it's a bad idea. You feel it. The tension is a taste on the tongue, sharp, metallic. This is the first glimpse of what no camera catches, the subtle implosion that precedes a public collapse. Behind every headline, there's a room like this. Small, ordinary, smelling faintly of coffee and panic. And in this room, choices that seem irrelevant, folding a paper wrong, ignoring a ping, a pause too long, can define a presidency. Next layer reveals the microdecisions that seal a career. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The hum of the fluorescent lights grows louder, or maybe your mind just tunes into it. You hear a chair scrape again, soft but deliberate, like someone marking territory. A junior aide clears their throat, awkwardly, as if announcing their presence will somehow anchor the room. It doesn't. Ever feel the way a conversation can turn poisonous in under 30 seconds? Watch closely. One aide leans toward another, whispers a sentence you can't quite catch. Words hang in the air. "I told you that memo was critical," one says. "You ignored it," replies the other. Microdecisions compound. Every glance, every nod, or lack of nod, is recorded, interpreted, weaponized. The president shifts, still half asleep, as if sensing tension but not fully registering it. A folder slides from the edge of the table. It lands with a faint thump. Nobody reaches for it. Tiny misstep. Yet somehow, it matters. "Do you see it?" someone mutters, eyes fixed on another aide. They're trading blame, the unspoken accusation thick enough to taste. Fluorescent lights flicker, and the metallic tang of fear lingers. You can feel it in your chest, the pressure, the anticipation, the certainty that someone will snap before the room even notices. A senior aide opens a laptop, fingers hovering over the keys. An email unsent for hours suddenly becomes urgent. They hesitate. Pause too long. A glance toward the president. Do you send it? Do you wait? The silence is a predator. Every microdecision here is a potential landmine. The whispers spread like wildfire. "Did you see what he just did? I'm not covering that." Each phrase carefully constructed, lightly coated with sarcasm, yet every word is a dagger. Allies who were friends yesterday are suddenly opponents. You feel the tension ripple down your spine. Heartbeat racing, air tasting metallic, tension pressing against your chest. And paradoxically, the more someone tries to regain control, the faster the room slips from their grasp. Momentum punishes hesitation. The president exhales, a long, slow sound. A yawn, barely noticeable, but enough to remind everyone he's still in the room. Control feels certain, until reality decides otherwise. A coffee cup tips, almost imperceptibly, spilling onto a pile of reports. Staff step over it, avoiding eye contact. Every microdecision, the step forward, the choice to ignore, the whispered remark, echoes like a drumbeat. Each one shifts the balance. One wrong move, and someone's career could implode in real time. Every pause, every glance, compounds, someone whispers to themselves. And yes, you feel it too. The tension thickens, hanging over the room like low clouds before a storm. This isn't chaos yet. Not fully. But the undercurrent is strong. Every unsent email, misread chart, or dropped folder adds to it. Then, the first overt betrayal. An aide clears their throat loudly, announcing a report they know contradicts another aide's recommendation. Eyes dart. Nods, half smiles, microaggressions ripple through the group. Conversations split, alliances fracture, trust erodes in slow, cinematic increments. You see it forming, a fault line running straight through the room. The president blinks, fully awake now. He leans forward. A subtle decision, a nod, a hand gesture, a pause, can undo months of planning or seal someone's fate. The aides watch like spectators at a tense game, each calculating, each maneuvering for advantage. Microdecisions multiply exponentially. You feel it in your gut, a storm is coming, and it started with whispered rumors and a nap. A printer clicks in the corner, paper sliding out with precise, almost malicious timing. Another aide picks it up, scanning. Misread. Misinterpreted. Already, the room's dynamic shifts. Every movement, every sound, every glance is freighted with consequences. Allies turn to rivals. Rivals sharpen their edges. Control slips further. Momentum is fragile. Perception is currency. Power is rarely what it seems. And in this room, ambition isn't beautiful, it's combustible. One wrong look, one misstep, and everything could ignite. You can almost see the dominoes aligning, ready to fall with the gentlest nudge. Next layer reveals the whispered conspiracies, the misfiled documents, the emails that arrive too late, and the decisions that turn allies into enemies. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The room vibrates with quiet panic. You feel it in your chest, in your fingertips, even in the small ache behind your eyes. Fluorescent lights hum like a warning siren. The metallic tang of spilled coffee still lingers, a ghost of carelessness. Every breath tastes heavy, like inhaling tension itself. An aide shuffles papers frantically. Another hesitates over an unsent email. Every microdecision feels monumental, like each could tip the scales irreversibly. You notice it, the slightest twitch in someone's hand, a subtle glance toward the door, the way lips press together before words escape. Then it happens. The first outright accusation. A sharp sentence cuts through the low murmur, you misread the report. This is on you. Eyes snap to the target. The target's jaw tightens. A half step forward. A pause. A whispered response, laced with venom. Allies, once aligned, now circle each other cautiously, each movement a defensive maneuver. The president stirs again, attempting to speak, but words falter. A cough. A hand gesture. A fleeting, meaningless nod. It should calm the room. It doesn't. Momentum punishes hesitation. You feel it, control slipping like water through fingers. A folder, forgotten, tilts and spills its contents, charts, memos, a half-marked briefing. Staff lean over to pick it up. Fingers brush. Eyes meet. Tension spikes, electric and tangible. Every microdecision here, whose hands touch what, whose eyes meet whom, has consequences that ripple outward like shockwaves. Ever notice how chaos multiplies quietly before it explodes? That's happening now. Whispered rumors become direct accusations. A misinterpreted statistic fuels a debate that grows louder, sharper, more personal. The metallic taste in the air intensifies, mingling with anxiety, coffee, and the faint burn of paper. A senior aide steps forward, trying to mediate. Words are careful, measured, but the room isn't listening. Allies interrupt, pointing fingers, bringing up misfiled documents, missed deadlines, a leaked memo no one can trace. Every gesture, every micro-expression, every hesitation is magnified. You can feel the tension in your gut, coiling tighter with each passing second. And here's where it gets messy, the president attempts to reclaim control. A raised hand. A deliberate pause. A directive. But the room interprets it differently. Eyes narrow. Whispers ripple through the air like a low-current storm. Microdecisions that should reinforce authority instead fracture it further. Allies slide toward opposition. A subtle smirk, a sidelong glance, a raised eyebrow, these become weapons. A coffee cup tips again. Spills creep toward important documents. Fingers hover, hesitate, withdraw. You see it, tiny missteps that now feel catastrophic. Every microdecision compounds. Momentum is fragile. Perception is currency. The first real confrontation erupts. Voices rise, low murmurs escalate to clipped sentences, sentences sharpen to accusations. The president leans back, helplessly, trying to assert calm, trying to reclaim authority. But control is already a ghost. You feel the room's energy, tense and volatile, like a storm about to break. Every glance is a gamble. Every whispered rumor a fuse. Every unsent email, every misread chart, every pause too long, it all matters now. You notice the paradox, the more he tries to steer, the faster the room asserts its own reality. Allies once loyal are now strategists, maneuvering subtly to gain advantage, erode influence, survive. Fluorescent lights flicker again. Metallic tension coats the air. A chair scrapes. A folder slides across the table. Micro-decisions, unnoticed by anyone but you, set off chain reactions that feel monumental. You feel the pull, this room will implode if nothing changes. But it might already be too late. And just as you think it can't get worse, the whispers turn into pointed accusations. Emails accidentally opened, charts misread, reports delayed, all converge. Allies openly challenge each other, the president, and even the protocols meant to maintain order. You feel it in your gut, the collapse isn't coming. It's here. Next layer reveals the final dominoes, the tiny errors, the unspoken grudges, the silent betrayals that will define who survives this chaos, and who doesn't. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. A soft click echoes across the room, a printer, almost unnoticed. Paper slides out. A memo, buried for days, lands on the table with quiet finality. Someone picks it up. Reads. Pauses. Micro-decision, to share, to withhold, to whisper. They hesitate. You feel it in your gut, the tension like static electricity, thick enough to taste. Whispers ricochet, subtle but sharp. Did you see this? I thought it was handled. No, this changes everything. Words spread, like ink bleeding into water, twisting alliances. The president leans forward, but the timing is off. Pause. Hand gestures. Eye contact. Misread. Momentum punishes hesitation. The room smells of burnt coffee again, mixed with paper and something metallic, fear, mostly. Staff shuffle documents, tiptoe around authority, scanning faces for reactions. Every glance, every micro-decision, becomes a weapon. You can almost hear the calculations behind each movement. Do I intervene? Do I let this play out? Can I survive this? One aide notices a misfiled chart, key figures swapped, deadlines blurred. They raise it quietly, hoping no one else sees. But eyes are sharp. Tension spikes. Conversations fragment into mini-fiefdoms. Whispered conspiracies emerge, they did this on purpose. It's sabotage. You feel it in your chest, the room is alive with hidden battles, invisible but devastating. The president exhales, low, unsure sound. Another micro-decision, to speak, to stay silent. Allies brace for guidance. Instead, confusion spreads. Emails left unsent become urgent. Charts misread. Reports ignored. Every tiny error compounds. You notice the paradox, the more he attempts control, the faster the room fractures. And now the betrayals surface. A whisper, I think someone leaked the brief. Eyes dart. Fingers twitch. The air thickens, metallic and tense. Micro-decisions multiply. One aide leans in too close, another leans back, avoiding contact. Every subtle gesture, smile, frown, nod, becomes loaded with intent, suspicion, power. You notice it, the chain reaction has started. Missteps cascade. One folder misplaced. One email misdirected. One hesitation too long. The president tries to intervene, a hand raised, a word spoken, a pause calculated. But control is already an illusion. Allies maneuver subtly, each trying to protect their position while exploiting others' mistakes. The hum of the fluorescent lights becomes deafening in the chaos. A chair scrapes, a file slides off the desk. Metallic tang in the air sharpens, anxiety thickening every inhalation. You feel the room shifting beneath your feet. Momentum punishes hesitation. Perception is everything. Every decision, every non-decision, has consequences. And then, the quietest betrayal hits the hardest. A memo, long ignored, surfaces with perfect timing. Someone reads it aloud, just enough volume for the wrong person to hear. Eyes widen, a gasp is stifled, whispers accelerate. Allies glance at each other, recalibrating, realigning. Subtle power shifts ripple outward like water in a pond. Every pause, every glance, every whisper compounds. You feel the pressure like a tidal wave building behind the room's walls. The president leans back again, exhausted, helpless. Every microdecision, from tipping a coffee cup to ignoring a chart, converges into one thing: chaos. Next layer reveals who will exploit the mistakes, who will survive, and which microdecisions, tiny, almost invisible, will determine the fate of everyone in this room. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The room vibrates with a tense energy that feels almost physical. You can sense it in your chest, your fingertips, the small ache behind your eyes. Fluorescent lights buzz like nervous heartbeats. The metallic tang of spilled coffee lingers, mingling with the faint burn of paper and the sharp bite of fear. Every breath tastes heavy, thick with anticipation. A misplaced folder becomes the first domino. Charts tumble out. Deadlines blur. Misread figures spark quiet outrage. Staff hesitate. Microdecisions multiply: pick it up, leave it, whisper, ignore. Every choice ripples outward. You feel it, the tension coils tighter in your gut. The whispers escalate. They didn't check the audit. This was supposed to be handled yesterday. Voices rise, clipped sentences becoming pointed accusations. Allies snap at each other. Fingers point, eyes narrow. Every glance carries a hidden calculation, every nod a silent judgment. The room fractures further, alliances splitting along invisible fault lines. The president attempts to assert control. A hand raised, a word spoken, a deliberate pause. But timing is off. Momentum punishes hesitation. Allies misinterpret gestures. Microdecisions that should reinforce authority instead fracture it further. You feel it, the room is no longer listening, it's reacting, scheming, surviving. A senior aide opens an email that should have been sent hours ago. The content exposes a misstep, a miscalculation, a secret overlooked. Eyes widen. Gasps stifle into whispers. A misfiled report surfaces, revealing errors no one can explain. Microdecisions converge into a single, unavoidable avalanche. You notice the paradox: the more the president tries to regain control, the faster reality asserts itself. Allies once loyal now maneuver subtly, seeking advantage, eroding influence, protecting themselves. Every pause, every glance, every whispered comment compounds. The air tastes metallic, every breath thick with tension. A chair scrapes violently against the floor. Papers scatter. A spilled coffee cup drips toward confidential folders. Fingers hover, hesitate, withdraw. Tiny errors that seemed inconsequential moments ago now feel catastrophic. Microdecisions, the unsent email, the misread chart, the whispered rumor, define outcomes. The whispers evolve into outright confrontation. Voices collide. Arguments ignite. Allies challenge each other openly, the president, even established protocols. Momentum punishes hesitation. You feel the chaos pressing in, palpable, heavy, almost alive. And then, the tipping point: a senior aide publicly contradicts the president, citing evidence from a misfiled document. The room freezes for a heartbeat. Eyes dart. The president's authority teeters. Microdecisions explode into macro consequences. Allies choose sides. Whispered conspiracies become spoken accusations. Control is gone. Every small error, email sent late, charts misread, folders ignored, now converges into one force: collapse. You notice it in the metallic taste in your mouth, the tension pressing against your chest, the sudden quiet between bursts of argument. Microdecisions have become irreversible. Momentum has overtaken management. The president exhales, slow, helpless. Fluorescent lights flicker above like a countdown. The room pulses with unease, every glance and gesture loaded with intent, suspicion, and fear. Allies no longer strategize to win, they strategize to survive. Every micro-decision compounds the unraveling. The room is quiet, but not really. Silence is just another layer of tension, thick and heavy. You feel it in your chest, in your fingertips, the metallic taste still lingering from spilled coffee and fear. The fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, like a countdown no one wants to acknowledge. Somewhere, a phone buzzes. Emails arrive too late. The world outside doesn't wait for internal chaos. Micro-decisions, ignored memos, unsent emails, misfiled reports, have already left the room. The first headlines flash on screens, blinking like warnings, presidential chaos erupts behind closed doors. Notice the subtle panic now. Eyes dart toward monitors. Fingers hover over keyboards. Staff shift, shuffle, whisper, strategize. Every micro-decision is a ripple, and ripples have already become waves. Allies glance at each other, weighing blame, reassessing loyalty. You can almost see the fault lines forming in real time. The president exhales, slow and hollow. Control is gone. A chair scrapes against the floor. Papers scatter. Coffee drips onto confidential files. Metallic tang fills the air. Tiny errors that once seemed inconsequential now feel catastrophic. The paradox is clear, the more attempts at control, the faster the unraveling accelerates. Whispers turn into accusations. Emails unsent for hours now serve as evidence. Misread charts, misfiled reports, delayed memos, all surface, like ghosts haunting the room. Staff look to one another, calculating, maneuvering, strategizing survival. Allies once loyal are now adversaries. Momentum punishes hesitation. A junior aide leans in, voice low but sharp, this will hit the press. Soon. Heads nod, subtle, almost imperceptible. The air thickens, metallic and heavy. You feel it in your gut, the collapse is no longer internal, it's about to go public. Every glance, every whispered conversation, every microdecision compounds. And then it happens. A leaked email surfaces online, confirming missteps, miscalculations, and miscommunications. Public outrage bubbles, fast and relentless. The president reacts, gestures, speaks, but every move is too late. Micro-decisions that seem trivial, when to reply, who to inform, what to overlook, have snowballed into irreversible outcomes. Allies now face the fallout. Finger-pointing accelerates. Whispers sharpen into accusations. A misfiled document is weaponized. The metallic tang in the air thickens with tension. You feel it, the room alive with panic, strategy, betrayal. Momentum dominates. Control is gone. The paradox is complete, every attempt to steer reality only accelerates its collapse. Micro-decisions, tiny, almost invisible, have defined the fate of careers, alliances, and the presidency itself. Fluorescent lights flicker like a warning, every hum echoing the chaos. The room is quieter now, but it hums with residual tension, like the air after a storm. Fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, shadows stretching across walls lined with untouched files and half-empty coffee cups. The metallic tang of fear and overbrewed coffee still lingers, subtle but persistent. You feel it in your chest, pressing, heavy. The president sits back, slouched, exhausted, eyes scanning the room that once felt like his command center. Now it's a battlefield. Allies, some loyal, some opportunistic, all wary, exchange glances, measuring, recalculating, silently marking who survived and who didn't. Every micro-decision they made, or failed to make, now echoes in the silence. He exhales slowly, the sound hollow in the charged air. Every pause, every gesture, every unsent memo comes back to him, flashing like warnings, momentum is fragile. Perception is currency. Control is rarely what it seems. Reflection pierces through the chaos. Ambition is beautiful, until it blinds you. And the more he tried to command, the faster reality claimed its course. A junior aide adjusts papers on the desk, trying to restore order, futilely. Fingers hover over an unsent email. The president notices the hesitation. The choice is small, almost meaningless, but at this stage, tiny errors carry monumental weight. You can feel it, the room thick with silent judgment, tension, and the residue of whispered conspiracies. Allies reflect as well, silently tallying gains and losses. A once trusted deputy smirks slightly, weighing advantage against loyalty. A whispered comment months ago, dismissed then, now feels prophetic. Micro-decisions that seem trivial have shaped outcomes. Every glance, every pause, every subtle gesture mattered more than anyone anticipated. The metallic tang sharpens as the president moves toward a chair, hesitates, sits. He notices the coffee stain creeping across confidential files. A reminder of imperfection. The room's energy presses in, dense with consequences. You feel it in your gut, even small errors ripple outward, amplified by fear, ambition, and misjudged timing. And here's the paradox, stark and undeniable: the harder one tries to regain control, the faster the room, and reality, slips from grasp. Allies who survived are cautious, calculating, protective. Those who faltered are quietly sidelined or already reshaping their narratives. Momentum punished hesitation. He leans forward, rubbing his temples. The hum of fluorescent lights, the faint smell of burnt coffee, the scattered folders, they are more than sensory details. They are markers of decisions, of missteps, of moments when microdecisions tipped the scale. A tiny pause, a misread chart, a whispered rumor, all coalesced into a collapse that felt inevitable, yet was built from human, ordinary choices. A senior aide finally speaks, voice low, measured. We're still here, but, barely. What's left isn't control. It's survival. You notice the subtle weight of truth. The president nods slowly, recognizing that perception has outpaced authority. Reflection and action intertwine, every move now carries the weight of irreversible outcomes. Outside the room, the world moves faster than the president can react. Headlines flash across screens, bold and accusatory: cabinet chaos exposed, presidential authority questioned, allies turn on each other. The metallic taste of fear is gone, replaced by the sharper tang of public scrutiny. You feel it in your chest, the pulse of perception shaping reality. Inside, allies sit stiffly, calculating. Some are relieved, others apprehensive. Microdecisions that once seemed trivial, an unsent email, a misfiled memo, a pause too long, have now erupted into consequences that cannot be undone. The room hums with subtle tension, a quieter but heavier residue than before. The president studies the monitors, watching how narrative shapes perception. Every word in every article twists momentum. Every public reaction is a microdecision amplified across millions of eyes. He realizes, painfully, that control is not just lost, it has been outsourced to perception itself. Allies reflect too. Those who predicted outcomes adjust their strategies. Subtle microdecisions, phrases uttered in private, dossiers shared selectively, whispered warnings ignored, now define their survival and leverage. You notice the paradox: in trying to dominate, the president and his closest aides set a chain reaction that freed reality from their grasp. A junior aide reopens a folder, scanning old memos. Tiny oversights stand out, a miscalculated figure here, a delayed reply there. Each small failure now magnified by public attention, each once ignored microdecision echoing consequences that will last weeks, months, years. The metallic tension returns briefly, a phantom of what the room once carried in concentrated form. The president exhales, recognizing patterns too late. Momentum punished hesitation, missteps, and whispers alike. He leans back, scanning the room for allies' expressions. Some are unreadable. Some subtle smirks signal survival and opportunism. Every glance, every micro-expression, every unspoken thought has weight now. Outside, the press speculates. Internally, allies maneuver quietly. A seemingly trivial choice, a phrase in a briefing, an email reply, the timing of a memo, has reshaped alliances and influence. Micro-decisions once invisible are now the scaffolding of a very public narrative. The paradox crystallizes: control is never absolute. Authority is perception, trust is fragile, and small errors, tiny, nearly invisible, can catalyze monumental outcomes. Fluorescent lights flicker faintly, shadows stretching across folders, laptops, and coffee cups. Every object, every smell, every sound anchors the memory of collapse. Next layer reveals the hidden consequences no one talks about: subtle shifts in loyalty, whispered regrets, personal reckonings. Careers rebuilt or destroyed. Ambition tempered, or burned entirely. And the micro-decisions that seemed inconsequential? They remain the invisible architects of public reality. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office is nearly empty now, fluorescent lights dim to a soft, uneasy glow. The metallic tang of tension has faded, replaced by the acrid bite of regret and exhaustion. You feel it in your chest, low and heavy, like gravity pressing down on every thought. Allies sit alone in corners, staring at scattered papers and glowing screens. Emails unsent, charts misread, whispers ignored, they replay in their minds, tiny microdecisions magnified into irreversible outcomes. Fingers hover over keyboards, hesitant. Each pause, each glance, each decision, or indecision, has consequences etched into memory. The president leans back in his chair, rubbing his temples. The weight of authority, once unquestioned, now feels brittle. Momentum punished hesitation. Control was never absolute. The paradox is cruelly clear: the harder he tried to steer, the faster reality slipped from his grasp. You notice the metallic tang in the air again, not fear, exactly, but the residue of chaos, stubborn and persistent. A senior aide reflects quietly, fingers tracing the edges of a misfiled memo. Every whispered warning ignored, every tiny pause in a meeting, every subtle misstep, their sum total now defines their career trajectory. Alliances that seemed solid now feel like shifting sand. You can almost see the ripple effects, spreading silently outward, reshaping loyalty, ambition, and influence. A junior aide opens an email never sent, eyes widening at the implications. Microdecisions compound. Momentum punished hesitation. Fluorescent lights flicker, shadows stretching long and thin across the room. Every glance, every gesture, every minor oversight has created a domino effect, invisible to most, catastrophic for those involved. The president exhales, slow and hollow. Reflection pierces through exhaustion. Perception is currency. Trust is fragile. Authority, fleeting. Ambition, beautiful until it blinds. And yet, even in this collapse, a lesson persists: every tiny choice, every hesitation, every whispered conversation, microdecisions, shapes reality far beyond the immediate moment. An aide pauses, staring at a spilled coffee stain on a once important file. Tiny, almost laughable. Yet its symbolism is impossible to ignore: chaos often hides in the minutiae. Every subtle gesture, every misread chart, every pause too long, they all built the narrative that now defines the presidency and its inner circle. And here's the final paradox: those who survived, those who adapted, are forever marked by the very microdecisions that seemed inconsequential. Careers altered, reputations tested, and trust fractured. Momentum punished hesitation, yet rewarded subtle cunning. Every glance, every whispered rumor, every unsent email, etched into the story of this collapse. The room is almost empty now, but the air hums with residual chaos. Fluorescent lights flicker faintly, shadows stretching long across scattered papers, overturned coffee cups, and glowing screens. The metallic tang lingers, a ghost of tension, regret, and unspoken mistakes. You feel it in your chest, heavy, like gravity pressing down on every thought. Outside, the world has judged. Headlines scream, social media amplifies, and narratives harden. Cabinet implodes, president loses control, allies betray each other. The president watches, helpless, as microdecisions, unsent emails, misread charts, whispered warnings, are dissected and amplified. Momentum punished hesitation. Control was never his. Allies maneuver quietly in the shadows. Some celebrate survival. Some calculate long-term gain. Every glance, every micro-expression, every tiny gesture now carries monumental weight. A misplaced folder, a delayed reply, a subtle smile, these trivial-seeming choices ripple outward, shaping careers and reputations irreversibly. A junior aide reopens a misfiled memo, fingers trembling. The errors, omissions, and delays stare back like accusatory ghosts. You notice the paradox: the smallest choices, the microdecisions, dictated the largest outcomes. Momentum, once a silent force, now dominates all. The president exhales, slow and hollow. Reflection pierces through the exhaustion. Authority is perception. Ambition is beautiful, until it blinds. The harder he tried to steer reality, the faster it slipped from his grasp. Allies are no longer co-conspirators, they are survivors, marking the fault lines of loyalty and betrayal. Outside, the press continues its relentless narrative. Emails unsent for hours, reports misread, briefings ignored, every microdecision magnified. Careers falter or pivot, reputations fracture or harden. Every subtle misstep contributes to irreversible fallout. Fluorescent lights flicker like a countdown, shadows marking the space where control once existed. In the final moments, you notice it, the tipping point was built from the invisible architecture of choices. Tiny errors, paused glances, whispered rumors, all compounded into catastrophe. Momentum punished hesitation. Perception overpowered authority. Trust shattered. The last aide exits, leaving the president alone among scattered files and half-drunk coffee. Silence presses. The metallic tang lingers, a reminder of chaos, of human error, of the invisible forces shaped by microdecisions. Reflection settles, every small act mattered, every hesitation mattered, and the room, the presidency itself, has been irreversibly reshaped. The office is dim now, the fluorescent lights buzzing faintly, like a distant heartbeat. Papers lie scattered, coffee stained and forgotten. The metallic tang of tension lingers in the air, faint but persistent. You feel it in your chest, a low, pressing weight that mirrors the gravity of reflection. The president sits alone, hands clasped, eyes scanning every file, every memo, every misstep replayed in his mind. Microdecisions flash vividly, the email left unsent, the chart misread, the whispered warning ignored. Each tiny choice, a pause too long, a glance missed, has compounded into a cascade of chaos. Momentum punished hesitation. You feel it, like the static in the air before a storm. He leans forward, fingertips brushing over a coffee-stained folder. The papers are ordinary, mundane, yet each is a monument to decisions that spiraled beyond control. The paradox is sharp and cruel: the more he tried to steer, the faster reality slipped from grasp. You notice the metallic tang intensify, subtle but undeniable, like memory made tangible. Flashbacks unfold. Allies' expressions in meetings, subtle smirks, hesitant nods, the tiny tremor of a hand, whispers caught mid-air, all microdecisions that reshape trajectories. The president recalls one moment, a paused reply to an urgent email, a hesitation barely perceptible. That pause, small and almost meaningless, now feels like a pivot point for disaster. The room exhales with him. Shadows stretch long across scattered papers, glowing screens, and empty coffee cups. Every glance, every sigh, every whispered self-reproach compounds into reflection. Microdecisions are now monuments of failure, markers of what once seemed trivial but ultimately dictated outcomes. You notice it, this deconstruction is sensory, almost physical. The hum of the lights, the faint metallic tang, the weight of the chair, the texture of paper, all anchors for reflection. Every mistake, every overlooked warning, every hesitation becomes palpable. Momentum punished hesitation. Reality asserts itself relentlessly. The president exhales slowly, acknowledging the invisible architecture of collapse. Perception is currency. Authority is fragile. Ambition can blind. Microdecisions, the barely noticed, almost invisible, have defined the course of the administration. The paradox lingers, trying to regain control after losing it only deepens the chaos. The president is alone, but the room is far from empty. Shadows stretch across desks where allies sit, quietly strategizing, calculating. Fingers hover over keyboards. Papers shuffle. Each microdecision, what to say, when to speak, whom to trust, carries weight that feels almost physical. You can sense it pressing against the chest, thick and heavy, like the air before a storm. A senior aide leans back, eyes scanning the room. Subtle glances exchanged, whispered comments barely audible, body language sharper than words. Loyalty is no longer assumed, it is negotiated silently in every gesture, every pause. Microdecisions multiply, respond now, hold back, share selectively, conceal truth. Every choice ripples outward. You notice the paradox, the closer they were to the president, the more vulnerable they feel. Their survival depends on reading microdecisions correctly, predicting momentum, anticipating reactions. One misread glance, one delayed reply, one whisper unheeded, and careers could falter. The metallic tang of tension fills the space, almost tangible. A mid-level aide opens a document, hesitates, then closes it. That pause is a decision, silent, invisible, yet consequential. Momentum punishes hesitation. Every microdecision is now magnified, every small choice a potential pivot point. Allies adjust, maneuver, test loyalties, all under the weight of perception and the ghost of chaos. The president's absence from the room, the pause in authority, amplifies these calculations. Allies weigh options, measure influence, and reposition subtly. A folder slides across the table, ignored by most, yet not unnoticed. Microdecisions like these, seemingly trivial, become strategic markers. You feel it, the room alive with subtle tension, whispered strategies, and silent calculations. Every glance, every gesture, every almost invisible act shapes the future. Paradoxically, control is no longer in the president's hands, it resides in the quiet, careful, strategic microdecisions of those around him. Next layer reveals how public scrutiny magnifies these private calculations, and how microdecisions, once invisible, dictate perception, loyalty, and the long-term outcome of power. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. Outside, the world moves faster than the president or his aides can react. Screens glow with headlines, urgent and accusatory, cabinet chaos exposed, president loses grip, allies turn on each other. The metallic tang of tension from the office now extends beyond walls, infiltrating perception itself. You feel it in your chest, a pulse of anticipation that mirrors the collective scrutiny of millions. Inside, allies sit stiffly, eyes flicking between monitors, phones buzzing with notifications. Each microdecision, the timing of a reply, the phrasing of a statement, the choice of whom to brief, has become evidence, amplified and dissected in real time. The paradox is clear, what once seemed trivial now dominates the narrative. Momentum punished hesitation, public perception punishes misjudgment. A senior aide glances at a leaked email. Fingers hover. Should they respond? Ignore it? Clarify? Each choice carries weight far beyond the office. Even a subtle hesitation compounds the pressure. Microdecisions have escaped the room and taken on a life of their own, shaping headlines and reputations simultaneously. The president watches, exhausted, as tweets, posts, and news cycles explode. Missteps that seemed minor, a delayed memo, a misread chart, a whispered warning, are now magnified and reinterpreted. The fluorescent lights of the office flicker like a metronome, echoing the rhythm of public judgment. Allies adjust quietly. Strategies evolve in shadows. A subtle nod, a careful pause, a whispered phrase, tiny actions now determine survival. Every micro-decision, amplified by external scrutiny, reinforces or undermines authority. You notice the paradox again: control in the office is meaningless without perception outside. The metallic tension is palpable. Air feels heavier, almost charged. Every glance at a screen, every subtle shift in posture, every hushed comment contributes to the evolving narrative. Momentum is relentless, perception unstoppable. The office feels smaller now, almost suffocating. Fluorescent lights hum softly, shadows stretching across scattered papers and half-drunk coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is faint but persistent, clinging to the air like a stubborn memory. You feel it in your chest, a low, heavy pressure, reminding everyone that the past lingers. Allies huddle in corners or behind closed doors, quietly replaying decisions no one thought mattered. Whispered regrets drift through the hallways, tiny choices, subtle hesitations, overlooked warnings. Every pause, every glance, every unsent email now carries the weight of consequence. Momentum punished hesitation. One aide traces a coffee-stained margin with a fingertip, eyes narrowing at a memo left untouched for weeks. A simple delay, inconsequential then, catastrophic now. The paradox is sharp: decisions ignored to save time or energy now shape reputations, alliances, and even careers. The president sits at his desk, alone, hands clasped, replaying micro-decisions like a silent film: the email never sent, the brief nod ignored, the whispered caution overlooked. Every tiny act compounds, revealing the invisible architecture of collapse. You notice the metallic tang intensify, almost like guilt, almost like inevitability. Ally whispers grow more urgent, but quiet enough to avoid detection. If only we had, should I have? Why did I ignore? Every fragment of regret is a micro-decision laid bare. Every subtle hesitation, every minor oversight now echoes in a chorus of consequences. You feel the weight of their reflections, almost physical. The office is thick with tension, memories of mistakes, and the lingering hum of fluorescent lights. The paradox lingers: the closer you are to power, the sharper the consequences of tiny missteps. Control is illusion, momentum dominates. The hum of fluorescent lights is drowned out by the relentless ping of notifications. Monitors glow with breaking headlines: cabinet implodes, president's authority questioned, allies betray each other. The metallic tang of tension returns, sharper now, mingling with the faint bitterness of cold coffee. You feel it in your chest, a tight, electric pulse of scrutiny. Inside, aides scramble silently. Fingers hover over keyboards. Every word typed, every tweet drafted, every email sent or withheld carries immense weight. Micro-decisions are amplified by the glare of public judgment. A subtle pause in a reply, a misphrased statement, a delayed clarification, each one is dissected across thousands of screens. Momentum punishes hesitation. A senior aide leans back, eyes flicking rapidly between news feeds and private channels. The paradox is stark: decisions once trivial now dictate careers, shape narratives, and redefine alliances. A whispered strategy, a choice to hold information, a glance ignored, all magnified into consequences far beyond the room. The president sits, observing the storm. Words, images, and commentary flash across screens. Every small error, every micro-decision once invisible, is now public property. Fluorescent lights flicker in rhythm with the incoming alerts, each one a reminder that control is illusory. Perception dominates. Authority is fragile. Outside, the world interprets, judges, and amplifies. Inside, allies calculate, maneuver, and adapt. A folder slides quietly across a desk, unnoticed, yet symbolic of every minor choice overlooked, every misjudged timing. You feel the tension, thick as concrete, pressing in from every angle. Microdecisions have escaped the room and taken on lives of their own. Every hesitation, every paused glance, every unsent memo now echoes in headlines and social feeds. Momentum, once silent, now dominates perception, turning private whispers into public verdicts. The office feels smaller than ever, lights buzzing faintly like nervous whispers. Shadows stretch across scattered papers, half-empty coffee cups, and glowing screens. The metallic tang of tension lingers, sharper now, a reminder that chaos has moved beyond the room, into perception itself. You feel it pressing in your chest, low and insistent. The president sits at the desk, attempting a careful recalibration. Emails drafted and redrafted, statements polished, gestures measured. Every microdecision, when to speak, what phrase to use, which ally to brief, is magnified under the harsh glare of public scrutiny. A pause too long, a word mischosen, a gesture misread, each could undo progress or deepen the collapse. Momentum punishes hesitation. Allies watch silently, calculating. Subtle glances, whispered comments, brief nods, strategic cues that indicate who supports redemption and who waits for opportunity. Microdecisions shape survival. The paradox is sharp, efforts to regain control often accelerate the perception of disorder. The more the president tries to steer, the faster reality asserts itself. A folder slides quietly across a desk, ignored by most. Yet it contains the key to a minor narrative shift, a small act of redemption. A junior aide hesitates over an email, fingers hovering. That moment, almost imperceptible, carries outsized weight. Every minor choice now ripples outward, magnified by momentum and public attention. Outside, news feeds react instantly. Every speech, every carefully crafted message, every public appearance is dissected. Microdecisions escape the office and become public property. The president feels it, authority is perception. Trust is fragile. Control is fleeting. A deep exhale. A brief pause. Reflection pierces action. Every microdecision, the emailed clarification, the delayed briefing, the understated apology, is simultaneously a tool and a risk. Allies adjust strategies in real time, reading every gesture, every glance, every hesitation. Survival depends on subtlety, precision, and timing. The office hums quietly, but the silence is deceptive. Fluorescent lights buzz intermittently, shadows stretching across stacks of papers, half-drained coffee mugs, and glowing monitors. The metallic tang of tension lingers, thicker now, like smoke from a fire no one can see but everyone can feel. You feel it pressing in your chest, a low, insistent weight, an invisible reminder that nothing in this room is truly settled. Allies shift in their chairs, subtle movements loaded with meaning. A glance exchanged between two aides, almost imperceptible, carries a signal, dissent, calculation, or perhaps opportunism. Every microdecision, when to speak, whom to trust, whether to nod or remain silent, has become a tool of survival. Whispered conflicts, almost invisible, ripple outward. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. One aide leans forward, voice barely above a whisper. "We can't keep pretending the president's control is intact," they say, eyes scanning the room. Another interrupts subtly, a hand on a folder, blocking vision. The microdecision to speak, or to stop, is a weapon. Small pauses, slight hesitations, and nearly invisible gestures now define alliances and fractures. The paradox is relentless, proximity to power amplifies vulnerability. The closer an ally is to the president, the sharper the consequences of their decisions. A misread glance, a delayed reply, or a whispered rumor ignored can cascade into betrayal. One aide recalls a moment weeks prior, a quietly expressed concern dismissed. Now it feels like the pivot point where trust began to crack. Shadows shift across the walls as fluorescent lights flicker. Papers shuffle, keys tap lightly, chairs scrape, the sensory rhythm of subtle conflict. A folder slides slowly across a desk, unnoticed by most, but eyes catch it. Micro-decisions like these, seemingly trivial, carry enormous weight, marking loyalty, signaling opportunity, or exposing weakness. The president sits, observing from his desk. The hum of monitors, the faint smell of burnt coffee, the metallic bite in the air, all sensory markers of the tension. He notices subtle cues: who avoids eye contact, who hovers near documents, whose hands twitch as if anticipating movement. Each tiny act is a microdecision loaded with consequence. The paradox deepens: the more he tries to interpret loyalty, the faster alliances shift beneath him. Whispered arguments erupt in corners, low and tense. Words cut softly, but their echoes are immense. We did what? Why wasn't I informed? You promised. Every phrase is a microdecision now weaponized, every slight hesitation amplified. Momentum punishes hesitation. A misstep here could unravel careers, expose betrayal, or shift influence irreversibly. You notice the almost invisible tension between allies, gestures, half-smiles, brief pauses, and withheld phrases. Each microdecision, amplified by scrutiny, shapes loyalty and power. A junior aide reopens a memo left months ago, discovering an error. Fingers hover, unsure whether to speak. That single pause, the choice to reveal or remain silent, could tip the balance. Momentum punishes hesitation, opportunity rewards subtlety. Outside, the world is unaware of these invisible battles, yet public perception waits to catch the ripple effects. Every decision, every whisper, every subtle move is magnified once it escapes the room. Allies now navigate a labyrinth of power, perception, and microdecisions, where silence can betray, and speech can save, or doom. The president exhales, feeling the weight of these hidden conflicts pressing against every strategy. Authority is perception. Trust is fragile. Control is fleeting. Every small choice, every whispered correction, every hesitation compounds into the invisible architecture of chaos. The office feels suffocating now, even as it empties. Fluorescent lights flicker intermittently, casting long, restless shadows across scattered papers, coffee cups, and glowing screens. The metallic tang of tension lingers, thick and almost tangible, pressing against the chest like gravity. You feel it, heavy, insistent, impossible to ignore. Outside, the world reacts faster than the office can keep up. Headlines flash across screens, scrolling endlessly, cabinet chaos spirals, president's authority collapses, allies turn on each other. Social media erupts, a living storm of interpretation, judgment, and amplification. Every minor misstep, every whispered conflict inside these walls, now travels beyond them, magnified into public verdicts. The paradox is sharp: decisions that seemed insignificant now carry monumental consequences. Inside, aides pivot constantly, reading, reacting, calculating. Microdecisions dictate survival: which message to release, which detail to withhold, how to phrase a clarification. One misstep, a poorly timed tweet, a hesitant statement, a misread email, can shift public perception in seconds. Momentum punishes hesitation. The metallic tang in the air grows heavier, almost physical, like the pressure of millions of eyes watching unseen. A senior aide pauses, staring at a news feed, fingers hovering over the keyboard. Should they respond? Clarify? Deny? Delay? Each choice is a microdecision with amplified consequences. Outside, the world interprets, judges, and shares. Inside, perception dominates reality. A glance ignored, a pause too long, a whisper unheeded, all compound into unseen yet irreversible effects. The president observes, exhausted, as public opinion morphs into a force that feels unstoppable. Fluorescent lights flicker, echoing the rhythm of incoming notifications. Every microdecision, what to reveal, what to conceal, when to speak, is magnified tenfold by scrutiny. Allies read every gesture, calculating survival strategies. The paradox deepens. Attempts at control within these walls are meaningless without external perception. Whispered analyses multiply in corners. If we don't act now, this will define us, one aide murmurs, barely audible. Another nods subtly, calculating loyalty and risk. Subtle body language, hesitation, and silence all serve as weapons or shields. Each microdecision is now both strategy and vulnerability. A misfiled memo is discovered, fingers hover over it, debating disclosure. That single, nearly invisible choice has the power to sway public opinion or further fracture alliances. Momentum punishes hesitation. Perception dominates. Trust fractures. Authority falters. Outside, social feeds erupt in parallel waves. Every private conflict, every minor oversight, every whispered secret is now public property. The tipping point of opinion approaches. Allies adjust, maneuver, and exploit. Each microdecision, small and seemingly insignificant, is amplified, shaping careers, reputations, and the fragile structure of power. You feel it, the invisible architecture of chaos, stretching from office walls to public perception. Every choice, every glance, every whispered comment, every unsent memo, ripples outward. Momentum punishes hesitation. Authority exists only as perception. And in that tension, the final dominoes wait. The office is quieter than usual, but silence carries weight. Fluorescent lights hum softly, flickering intermittently, shadows stretching across scattered papers, half-drained coffee cups, and glowing monitors. The metallic tang of tension lingers, thick and persistent, almost tangible. You feel it pressing in your chest, a low, insistent pull that mirrors the invisible forces at work. Allies move with careful deliberation, each gesture a test, each glance a calculation. Microdecisions dictate survival, whom to trust, when to speak, how to position themselves. Even the smallest action, a nod, a pause, a hand hovering over a folder, becomes a tool in a game of subtle power. Momentum punishes hesitation, and perception dominates reality. In a corner, two senior aides exchange words in hushed tones. "We can't let loyalty blind us," one murmurs, eyes scanning the room. The other hesitates, weighing whether to reveal a misstep, to expose a rival, or remain silent. That pause, the near-invisible microdecision, carries consequences that ripple outward instantly. Every whisper, every glance, every subtle gesture now holds the weight of potential betrayal. The paradox is sharp. Allies who were closest to the president now feel most exposed. Trust, once assumed, has fractured into careful calculation. One aide recalls a moment from a week prior, a warning unheeded, a subtle disagreement dismissed. Now, that single choice reverberates through every interaction, shaping allegiance and undermining cohesion. A misfiled memo slides across a desk, almost ignored. Fingers hover above it. Should they read it? Should they disclose it? The microdecision is monumental. One wrong choice, one hesitation too long, and alliances crumble. Momentum punishes hesitation. Every act of survival is balanced on the razor's edge of perception and timing. The president watches, silently, feeling the subtle tremors of shifting loyalty. Fluorescent lights flicker, echoing the rhythm of whispered strategies and quiet calculations. Allies test boundaries, probe for weakness, and maneuver with precision. Each tiny act, an email drafted and deleted, a glance held too long, a word chosen or withheld, carries strategic weight. Microdecisions have become currency, trust is fragile, authority is perception. A junior aide hesitates over a document, weighing disclosure. The room is alive with tension, the metallic tang thick, almost suffocating. Subtle choices compound, echoing across corridors and into social media feeds. Allies' microdecisions now dictate not just survival, but influence, power, and reputation. Whispered regrets and strategic calculations collide. If I share this, it could backfire, one thinks. If I stay silent, I risk exposure. The paradox deepens. Every decision made to protect oneself simultaneously risks destabilizing the fragile network of alliances. Momentum punishes hesitation, yet each hesitation feels necessary, deliberate, and terrifying. You feel it, invisible threads of trust, power, and strategy weaving through the room, every microdecision tugging at the structure. Allies navigate a minefield of perception, opportunity, and loyalty. What seemed minor, a glance, a pause, a whispered phrase, now defines the survival or downfall of careers. The architecture of chaos is precise, invisible, and relentless. The office vibrates with a tension so thick it almost hums in the air. Fluorescent lights buzz with erratic energy, casting jittery shadows across stacks of papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is stronger now, clinging to every surface, pressing against your chest with the insistence of inevitability. You feel it, a weight that tightens with each passing moment. A single overlooked memo lies in plain sight, the corners curled and coffee-stained. No one reaches for it. A small error, invisible until now, but its absence compounds silently. Momentum punishes hesitation. The tiniest mistakes, missed deadlines, unsent emails, misread charts, are no longer trivial. Each has a ripple effect, magnified by scrutiny, perception, and the fragile architecture of trust. An aide pauses over a forwarded email, debating disclosure. Fingers hover. That microdecision, almost imperceptible, carries enormous consequences. Will they speak up and risk backlash, or stay silent and risk discovery? The paradox is sharp, action can be dangerous, inaction can be fatal. Every microdecision, no matter how small, has been weaponized by circumstance. The president watches from his desk, exhausted, as the consequences unfold in real time. Fluorescent lights flicker in rhythm with the incoming alerts, a metronome of chaos. Allies shift subtly, exchanging glances, whispering advice or warnings. Microdecisions ripple outward, shaping not only internal strategy but public perception. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. A minor misstep, a delayed response to a media inquiry, a chart misread in a briefing, a whispered warning ignored, explodes into consequence. Headlines shift within minutes. Allies reassess loyalties. Trust fractures further. Every subtle hesitation compounds, feeding the cycle of unraveling. You feel the metallic tang intensify, almost like static electricity in the air, a physical manifestation of tension escalating. The paradox grows crueler, attempts to regain control now accelerate collapse. Allies test boundaries, navigate subtle conflicts, and exploit opportunities created by minor mistakes. A misfiled folder slides across the floor, unnoticed, yet its contents could tip the balance of perception. Tiny errors, once trivial, now govern outcomes, careers, and authority. Whispers escalate. Did you see this? They ignored the memo. No one acted. Every phrase, every hesitation, every glance, becomes a node in the architecture of chaos. Momentum punishes hesitation, every microdecision compounds. The room feels alive with invisible friction, subtle betrayals, and strategic calculation. Outside, the world watches. News cycles amplify every error, magnifying tiny oversights into scandals. Social media erupts. Microdecisions, once private, now shape public perception, magnifying the consequences of seemingly insignificant acts. The president's authority, fragile to begin with, teeters on the edge. You notice it, the room, once orderly, is now a landscape of cascading microdecisions, minor oversights, and explosive consequences. Every pause, every whisper, every unnoticed gesture contributes to the unraveling. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception rules reality, and authority is a fragile illusion. The office has become a pressure cooker. Fluorescent lights buzz sharply, shadows jitter across desks, papers, and glowing monitors, each flicker like a heartbeat on the verge of stopping. The metallic tang of tension hangs thick, almost suffocating, pressing against your chest like gravity itself. You feel it, a low, insistent weight that mirrors the cascading momentum of events. Every micro-decision, once invisible, now detonates like a series of dominoes. An aide hesitates over an email, fingers hovering. A misfiled memo slides unnoticed across a desk. A whispered caution goes unspoken. Each tiny act, ignored, delayed, or misread, triggers consequences far beyond its size. Momentum punishes hesitation. Perception dominates reality. Trust fractures further with every pause. The president watches, exhausted, as the room subtly erupts with tension. Allies shift positions, exchange furtive glances, and whisper warnings behind closed doors. One aide reopens a report that should have been finalized weeks ago. Fingers hover, unsure whether to expose the error or conceal it. That single micro-decision, a choice seemingly trivial, is magnified, shaping loyalty, influence, and the narrative outside the room. The paradox is merciless. Attempts to regain control now accelerate the unraveling. Allies navigate a treacherous lattice of trust and opportunism, each microdecision rippling outward like shockwaves. A folder slides across the floor, barely noticed, yet it contains the evidence that transforms private errors into public scandal. Momentum punishes hesitation, every gesture counts. Small errors compound. A delayed briefing sparks confusion. Misread charts influence decisions. A whispered warning ignored leads to a visible misstep. Each minor lapse explodes into consequence, cascading through meetings, press releases, and public perception. You feel the metallic tang thicken, almost like static, a physical echo of every tiny failure magnified. Outside, news cycles amplify the chaos. Social media erupts. Allies adjust strategies in real time, reading gestures, assessing loyalty, exploiting hesitation. Micro-decisions have escaped the room, they are public property. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception rules reality. Authority teeters, unstable as a fragile sculpture. Whispers escalate. Did you act? Why wasn't this caught? Who knew and didn't say? Every phrase, every pause, every subtle gesture becomes a node in the cascading collapse. Minor errors, once inconsequential, now dictate careers, reputations, and the perception of competence. The president exhales slowly, absorbing the scope of the domino effect. Fluorescent lights flicker above, echoing the rhythm of incoming alerts, of decisions gone awry, of the inevitable collapse. The paradox is absolute, the more he tries to regain control, the faster the dominoes fall. You feel it, the invisible chain reaction of micro-decisions, errors, and misjudgments now governs the room. Each tiny act, each whispered hesitation, each unnoticed glance is a link in the architecture of unraveling. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality, and authority is an illusion hanging by threads. Next layer reveals how the first visible cracks in leadership widen, alliances shatter completely, and public judgment hardens into irreversible perception, pushing the administration closer to total collapse. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office feels colder now, the fluorescent lights buzzing like a nervous heartbeat. Shadows stretch across desks cluttered with papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is almost suffocating, clinging to every surface, pressing against your chest, a physical echo of the unraveling momentum inside. You feel it, insistent and unavoidable. The first cracks in leadership have begun to widen, invisible at first, then undeniable. Allies who once nodded unquestioningly now hesitate, subtle glances betraying doubt. Micro-decisions, small and unnoticed before, now define influence, loyalty, and survival. A single misread chart, a delayed briefing, a whispered concern ignored, has magnified into fractures that threaten cohesion. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. An aide hesitates over an email, fingers hovering above the send button. Should they clarify, correct, or remain silent? That microdecision carries weight far beyond the room. The paradox sharpens, every action taken to regain authority risks accelerating the perception of disorder. Allies watch carefully, reading gestures, evaluating intentions, calculating risk. Trust is fragile, loyalty is conditional, control is illusion. The president sits, observing, exhausted. Fluorescent lights flicker in rhythm with incoming alerts, like a metronome counting down errors. Private conflicts, subtle betrayals, and microdecisions have compounded into visible cracks. A folder slides unnoticed across the floor, its contents hold evidence that could redefine the perception of competence, loyalty, and authority. One aide leans over it, fingers hovering. Should they open it? Ignore it? Reveal it? Momentum punishes hesitation, every choice now reverberates across internal and external perception. Minor mistakes erupt into consequence. A misworded statement in a briefing sparks confusion. A delayed memo fuels rumor. A whispered warning ignored escalates into visible friction among senior aides. The room, once orderly, is now alive with tension, calculated movements, and invisible strategies. You notice it, every gesture, pause, and whispered phrase compounds, forming the architecture of collapse. Allies begin to fracture more openly. Microdecisions have created rifts, and perception amplifies them. The paradox deepens, attempts to assert authority increasingly destabilize cohesion. Every subtle hesitation, every overlooked warning, every micro-mistake accelerates erosion of trust. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. Outside, news cycles amplify the internal cracks. Social media magnifies minor errors, shifting them into scandal. Allies adjust strategies in real time, exploiting hesitation, testing loyalty, and quietly consolidating influence. Every microdecision, once private, now defines careers, shapes perception, and determines survival. The president's authority teeters on a knife edge. You feel it, the room, thick with metallic tension, is a stage for fractures, missteps, and cascading consequences. Each pause, each glance, each whispered word contributes to the unraveling. Authority is perception. Momentum punishes hesitation. Trust is fragile. The cracks in leadership widen with every microdecision, every minor oversight, every hesitation. Next layer reveals how public perception, amplified by internal fractures, will force irreversible consequences, pushing the administration toward a tipping point of collapse. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office feels like it's closing in. Fluorescent lights hum sharply, flickering intermittently, casting jittery shadows across desks stacked with papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is suffocating now, almost alive, pressing into your chest like a tangible weight. You feel it, low and insistent, a physical echo of the unraveling chaos. Every microdecision, every hesitation, every overlooked warning has compounded. Momentum punishes hesitation. Trust fractures further. Allies, once aligned, now move like chess pieces, calculating survival, loyalty, and leverage. A whispered word here, a delayed email there, a glance avoided, each small act has rippled outward, amplified by scrutiny, perception, and circumstance. The consequences are no longer contained, they are irreversible. The president watches, exhausted, as the dominoes fall. One aide opens a misfiled folder, revealing details that contradict prior assurances. Another hesitates over a clarifying memo, unsure whether sending it will repair trust or deepen scandal. Every microdecision now carries extraordinary weight. One wrong move can accelerate collapse. The paradox is brutal, attempts to regain control are accelerating the unraveling. Minor mistakes erupt like sparks in a tinderbox. A misworded statement in a briefing inflames public speculation. A delayed response to media inquiries allows rumors to harden into narratives. A whispered warning ignored escalates internal conflict into open fracture. The room is alive with subtle chaos, microdecisions interacting, multiplying, compounding. You notice it, every glance, pause, and whispered phrase contributes to the architecture of collapse. Allies' private maneuvers become public liabilities. A junior aide, trembling, hovers over an email draft, debating disclosure. One misstep, one hesitation, one minor misjudgment could redefine public perception, alter loyalty, and seal careers. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. Authority is fragile. Control is an illusion. Outside, news cycles amplify every internal fracture. Headlines shift within minutes, cabinet implodes, authority in question, allies rebel. Social media erupts. Every microdecision, once private, is magnified beyond comprehension. Internal conflicts, minor errors, and subtle misjudgments become public judgment. The paradox sharpens: the more you try to manage outcomes, the less control you have. The president exhales, feeling the full weight of irreversibility. Fluorescent lights flicker above, echoing the rhythm of cascading errors and escalating crises. Allies who once supported quietly now hedge, maneuver, and protect themselves. Trust is gone, cohesion is fractured, perception rules. Every subtle hesitation, every overlooked detail, every whispered warning has compounded into consequences that cannot be undone. You feel it, the invisible architecture of chaos, built from microdecisions, minor oversights, and hesitation, has hardened into irreversible reality. Momentum punishes hesitation. Perception dominates. Authority falters. Careers, reputations, and alliances now exist in a fragile balance, tilting irrevocably toward collapse. Next layer reveals how final tipping points will force decisive action, reshaping power, alliances, and survival, moving the administration into the climax of unraveling. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office is a pressure cooker on the verge of explosion. Fluorescent lights flicker in erratic pulses, casting restless shadows across stacks of papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is thick, almost palpable, pressing against your chest like gravity. You feel it, a persistent, insistent weight, as though the room itself is aware of the inevitability building inside. Allies move like predators and prey simultaneously. Every gesture, glance, and pause is a microdecision loaded with consequence. Emails sit unsent, memos unread, whispered concerns unvoiced. The smallest hesitation has become magnified, shaping perception, loyalty, and survival. Momentum punishes hesitation. The paradox is brutal: the more you try to assert control, the more the room tilts toward disorder. The president sits, exhausted, absorbing the consequences of compounded microdecisions. A misfiled folder slides almost imperceptibly across a desk, revealing information that reframes prior narratives. An aide hovers over an email, fingers trembling, debating disclosure. Every microdecision carries outsized weight. One wrong choice could accelerate collapse, turn private doubts into public spectacle, and fracture alliances beyond repair. The room vibrates with subtle chaos. A misworded statement in a briefing spreads like wildfire. Delayed responses to inquiries allow rumor and speculation to harden into perceived truth. Allies shift in chairs, whisper behind hands, nod subtly, or refrain from speaking at all. Microdecisions, once trivial, now dictate influence, survival, and the narrative itself. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. The paradox sharpens: attempts to regain authority paradoxically accelerate the unraveling. Every subtle hesitation, every overlooked warning, every whispered warning compounds the tension. The metallic tang thickens, almost like static electricity in the air, echoing the invisible chain reaction of errors, missteps, and internal fracture. Outside, public perception is relentless. News cycles churn, social media amplifies every minor misjudgment, every delayed response, every internal conflict. Private microdecisions now dictate external judgment. Allies maneuver with precision, exploiting hesitation, testing loyalty, and consolidating influence in real time. Trust has fractured, authority teeters on a knife edge. The president exhales slowly, aware that the tipping point is imminent. Fluorescent lights flicker in rhythm with incoming alerts, cascading errors, and escalating crises. The dominoes, once only visible in small tremors, now lean together, ready to fall. Every microdecision, every glance, every pause contributes to the final architecture of collapse. Momentum punishes hesitation. Authority exists only as perception. The room is poised on the edge of irreversible unraveling. You notice it, microdecisions that seemed insignificant, an unsent memo, a delayed warning, a misread chart, now govern outcomes, careers, reputations, and the fragile structure of power. The paradox is absolute: the more you attempt to regain control, the more the collapse accelerates. Next layer reveals how the first domino falls publicly, triggering cascading failures across alliances, perception, and power, forcing decisive action and shaping irreversible consequences. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office is no longer just tense, it's electric. Fluorescent lights buzz sharply, casting jittery shadows across stacks of papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension is nearly suffocating, clinging to every surface, pressing into your chest like a tangible weight. You feel it, every microdecision, every hesitation, every overlooked detail converging into a cascade too large to stop. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. A single aide forwards a misfiled memo to a reporter. Fingers hesitate over the send button, then push. One tiny action, one seemingly insignificant microdecision, triggers the first domino. Momentum punishes hesitation, and perception dominates reality. News cycles erupt instantly. Cabinet cracks widens, president's authority questioned, allies turn on each other. Social media ignites like dry tinder. Every private conflict, every minor misstep, every whispered disagreement now splashes across the public eye. The paradox is brutal: the attempt to control outcomes has accelerated exposure, and the dominoes fall faster than anyone inside could have anticipated. Inside, the president watches, exhausted, as cascading effects unfold. Allies shift in chairs, whisper urgently, pause, and recalculate. Emails unsent for weeks are suddenly read, memos revisited, past warnings reopened. Every microdecision, each hesitation, glance, or carefully withheld phrase, amplifies consequences. One overlooked error becomes headline news, one delayed response sparks speculation, one whisper fuels rumor. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. The paradox deepens: those closest to power are now most exposed. A senior aide leans over a folder, fingers trembling. Should they disclose a critical fact or remain silent to protect themselves? Every microdecision now carries outsized weight, dictating not just internal alliances but public perception and survival. You feel the metallic tang thicken, almost like static, a tangible echo of the cascading chaos. Whispers become arguments. Microdecisions compound. Why wasn't this caught? Who approved that? Did anyone alert the president? Every glance, every pause, every nearly invisible gesture now contributes to the unraveling. Momentum punishes hesitation, trust fractures further. Allies hedge, maneuver, and exploit hesitation in real time, reshaping loyalty and influence with every subtle move. The president exhales, aware the domino effect has entered public consciousness. Authority teeters on a knife edge, internal fractures now mirrored in external judgment. Careers, reputations, and alliances wobble precariously, their fate determined by decisions both monumental and microscopic. Microdecisions, once private, now govern consequences far beyond the walls of the office. You notice it, a single unsent email, a delayed clarification, a whispered warning ignored. These small acts now dictate cascading failure. The first domino has fallen, and there is no stopping the chain reaction. The paradox is absolute, every attempt to regain control has only accelerated collapse. The room, thick with metallic tension, is alive with calculated chaos, subtle betrayal, and invisible fractures expanding outward. Next layer reveals how cascading public and private failures force irreversible reckonings, reshaping alliances, and exposing the full extent of internal collapse, propelling the narrative toward its climax. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office feels suffocating now, as if the walls themselves are aware of the collapse unfolding inside. Fluorescent lights flicker erratically, casting long, restless shadows over stacks of papers, glowing monitors, and half-drained coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension hangs thick, pressing against your chest like gravity itself. You feel it, heavy, insistent, unavoidable. The dominoes that began falling days ago have gained unstoppable momentum. Micro-decisions, once small and private, now dictate catastrophic consequences. A misfiled memo, a delayed email, a whispered warning ignored, these tiny acts have compounded into irreversible reckoning. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality. Trust fractures. Authority teeters. Control has become an illusion. Allies move like predators and prey at once. Every glance, pause, and gesture is loaded with implication. An aide hesitates over an email, fingers hovering. Should they disclose, clarify, or conceal? Every micro-decision carries the weight of careers, alliances, and public perception. The paradox is merciless: the more attempts made to regain control, the faster the unraveling accelerates. The president sits, exhausted, watching as internal fractures explode outward. Fluorescent lights flicker in rhythm with incoming alerts, cascading errors, and escalating crises. Private disputes, once contained, now play out on public stages. Headlines scream, authority collapses, cabinet implodes, allies turn on each other. Every micro-decision has become amplified, visible, irreversible. Minor errors erupt into monumental consequences. A misworded statement in a briefing triggers public speculation. A delayed response allows rumors to harden into perceived truth. Micro-decisions multiply, interacting like a chain reaction. You feel the metallic tang thicken, almost static, a physical echo of the irreversible collapse. Allies fracture completely. Subtle betrayals become overt, whispers turn into accusations, hesitation becomes paralyzing. Every unsent memo, every ignored warning, every tiny misstep has coalesced into public scrutiny and internal chaos. Momentum punishes hesitation. Perception rules. Careers wobble. Authority falters. Trust is gone. The paradox is absolute: attempts to assert control only accelerate collapse. Every glance, every pause, every whispered word compounds the architecture of failure. Internal fractures and public perception collide, forcing irreversible consequences that no microdecision can now repair. You notice it, the room is alive with tension, chaos, and strategic calculation, but all calculations are too late. The dominoes, once invisible, have struck their targets. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception dominates reality, authority teeters irreversibly. The irreversible reckoning is complete. Next layer reveals the final consequences on careers, alliances, and power structures, and how perception will permanently define the outcome, cementing the climax of unraveling. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office is silent now, but the silence carries weight. Fluorescent lights hum intermittently, shadows stretching across desks cluttered with papers, glowing monitors, and abandoned coffee cups. The metallic tang of tension still lingers, almost suffocating, pressing into your chest like a reminder of the chaos that has already run its course. You feel it, low and insistent, a physical echo of the unraveling now complete. The dominoes have fallen. Every micro-decision, every hesitation, every minor error has converged into a full-blown collapse. Momentum punished hesitation. Perception dominated reality. Trust is fractured. Authority is hollow. The paradox has played out in full, every attempt to regain control only accelerated the downfall. Allies move cautiously, some quietly calculating their next steps, others openly severing ties. Subtle betrayals have become overt, whispered doubts have hardened into accusations. A misfiled folder, an unsent memo, a delayed warning, once small, now emblematic of the unraveling that cannot be repaired. You notice it, every microdecision, every hesitation, every glance contributed to the architecture of collapse. The president sits, exhausted, absorbing the irreversible consequences. Fluorescent lights flicker above, echoing the rhythm of cascading failures and escalating scrutiny. Internal fractures now mirror public judgment. Headlines scream, social media erupts, and allies act in self-preservation. Careers, reputations, and alliances have been reshaped by tiny choices magnified into irreversible outcomes. Minor errors erupted into monumental consequences. A misworded statement in a briefing ignited speculation. A delayed response allowed rumors to harden into perceived truth. Microdecisions interacted like a chain reaction, magnifying the impact of every hesitation. The metallic tang thickens, almost like static, a tangible reminder that the collapse is cemented. Trust has vanished. Cohesion is fractured beyond repair. Authority exists only as perception, fragile and fleeting. The paradox is absolute, the harder the attempt to assert control, the more irreversible the consequences became. Allies who once aligned now pursue separate agendas, careers wobble, reputation falters, and the structure of power lies in ruins. You feel it, the room, thick with tension and echoes of strategic missteps, is a monument to microdecisions gone awry. Every glance, pause, and whispered word contributed to the cementing of collapse. Momentum punished hesitation, perception dominated reality, authority is hollow. The unraveling is complete. Every subtle hesitation, every overlooked warning, every whispered concern has converged into irreversible reality. The domino effect has run its course, leaving nothing untouched. Careers, alliances, and power structures are permanently altered. The collapse is cemented. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the unraveling. The office is empty now, but the echoes of chaos linger. Fluorescent lights flicker softly, their hum muted against the hollow quiet. Papers lie scattered, monitors glow with unattended alerts, and half-drained coffee cups sit as silent witnesses. The metallic tang of tension has faded slightly, but it lingers, like smoke after a fire, reminding everyone that the collapse was real and irreversible. Outside, the world reacts. Headlines declare the unraveling in bold type, cabinet implodes, authority crumbles, allies rebel. Social media explodes with commentary, analysis, and speculation. Every microdecision, once private, has been magnified into public spectacle. Perception dominates reality. Momentum punished hesitation. Careers are redefined. Reputations, once carefully curated, are fractured beyond repair. Inside, the remaining aides move cautiously, each microdecision weighted with consequence. Every glance, pause, and whispered word is now a reflection of survival, strategy, or damage control. The paradox remains, the same choices that could have repaired fractures now feel almost impossible to take. Timing has passed, hesitation has already punished them. The president sits quietly, absorbing the full scope of aftermath. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead like a heartbeat that has slowed but refuses to stop. Trust has evaporated, alliances are reshaped, perception now governs every remaining interaction. Authority is hollow, yet still observed. Every microdecision, every subtle action, is now filtered through the lens of past collapse. Minor errors have become permanent landmarks. A misread chart, an unsent memo, a delayed warning, once invisible, now define public and private narratives. Momentum punished hesitation, perception dominated reality, and the lessons are clear. Even small acts, when compounded, can dictate outcomes beyond imagination. You notice it, the office is a monument to subtle chaos, to decisions made and avoided, to whispers and pauses that shaped irreversible reality. The paradox of power is clear, attempts to control outcomes often accelerate unraveling, and perception often outweighs substance. Micro-decisions, once private, now echo loudly, shaping reputations, alliances, and futures. Reflection settles over the scene. Authority is fragile, trust is conditional, and control is an illusion. Momentum punishes hesitation, perception rules reality, and the smallest acts can dictate the largest consequences. The office, once a stage for strategy, is now a testament to human error, misjudgment, and the unstoppable force of compounded decisions. Next layer hints at long-term consequences, how perception will continue to shape careers, public judgment, and power structures long after the immediate collapse. The story lingers in the mind, momentum punishes hesitation, and the smallest choices echo indefinitely. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the lingering unraveling. The office has been cleared, yet the space hums with memory. Fluorescent lights flicker faintly, shadows stretching over empty desks and glowing monitors left dormant. Papers lie scattered, coffee cups cold, screens frozen mid-alert. The metallic tang of tension lingers subtly, a ghostly echo of decisions made and hesitations punished. You feel it, faint but insistent, like the aftershock of an earthquake that reshaped the landscape forever. Beyond these walls, the consequences ripple outward. Headlines evolve from shock to analysis, authority permanently undermined, allies reshape power structures, trust redefined. Social media churns endlessly, replaying each microdecision, each hesitation, each whispered warning. The paradox endures, actions once private now dominate perception, and perception now dictates reality. Careers, reputations, and alliances are forever altered, their trajectories determined by the smallest of choices compounded over time. The president, once at the center of orchestrated control, now navigates a world where authority is fragile and perception reigns supreme. Fluorescent lights flicker overhead like a heartbeat trying to regain rhythm, yet the tension remains, a reminder that collapse leaves invisible scars. Microdecisions now have historical weight, the past cannot be undone, and every subtle act continues to shape outcomes in unforeseen ways. Allies adapt, some retreating, others consolidating power quietly. Every glance, every pause, every whispered comment becomes a strategic tool, as perception continues to govern influence. Momentum punished hesitation before, it continues to do so now, in slower, more insidious ways. Trust is a currency constantly recalculated, and microdecisions, once trivial, now define long-term alignment and opportunity. Minor errors have hardened into landmarks of consequence. A misread report, an unsent email, a delayed warning, each magnified by scrutiny, continues to influence judgment. Momentum punished hesitation, perception dominated reality, and those echoes ripple into ongoing decisions. The paradox is eternal. The more one attempts to control outcomes, the more reality resists, shaped by compounded past microdecisions. You notice it, the office, though empty, is alive with the residual tension of choices made and deferred. The architecture of collapse remains etched in the air, in the shadows, in the faint hum of fluorescent lights. Every hesitation, every misstep, every subtle decision continues to inform power, trust, and perception. Authority is no longer a certainty, it is a delicate balance, shaped by history, perception, and the compounded weight of countless small actions. Reflection settles over the scene. Momentum punished hesitation. Perception dominates reality. The smallest choices echo endlessly. The ripple of collapse will continue to shape alliances, careers, and public judgment long after the lights go out. The story lingers in memory, a testament to the paradox of power, the fragility of authority, and the unstoppable weight of microdecisions. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the long-term ripples of the unraveling. The office is silent now, a hushed museum of decisions past. Fluorescent lights flicker weakly, their hum soft but persistent, like a heartbeat that refuses to die. Papers remain scattered, monitors glow dimly, and the cold scent of abandoned coffee lingers. The metallic tang of tension has faded into memory, yet its imprint remains, etched in the air, in the shadows, in every surface that witnessed the unraveling. The story of collapse, once immediate and visceral, has settled into reflection. Every domino, every hesitation, every microdecision, every whisper now exists as a permanent lesson. Momentum punished hesitation. Perception dominated reality. Authority is fragile. Trust is conditional. And the paradox of power is unrelenting. Attempts to control outcomes often accelerate the unraveling. Allies who survived the chaos now move with caution. Every glance, pause, and choice carries weight informed by past collapse. Careers, reputations, and alliances are forever reshaped by microdecisions once deemed trivial. A misfiled memo, a delayed warning, a glance ignored, these small actions compounded into consequences that history will not forget. The office is quiet, but the echoes of those choices resonate indefinitely, shaping strategy, perception, and authority long after the immediate storm has passed. Reflection deepens. The lessons are subtle yet profound. Momentum punishes hesitation, but hesitation is human. Perception dominates reality, but truth endures in fragments. Authority is a fragile construct, easily undone by small errors and compounded missteps. And yet, paradoxically, those same missteps reveal the resilience of individuals, the adaptability of allies, and the enduring complexity of leadership. You notice it, the room, though empty, remains alive with tension, memory, and consequence. Every corner, every shadow, every hum of the flickering lights is a reminder that decisions, no matter how small, carry weight beyond imagination. Microdecisions, compounded over time, have rewritten careers, fractured trust, and reshaped power. The paradox endures: control is never absolute, authority is never guaranteed, and the smallest choice can define the largest outcome. As the final reflection settles, you understand the lasting truth: leadership is fragile, momentum is unforgiving, and perception shapes reality in ways that cannot be undone. The unraveling may end in moments, but its consequences ripple endlessly, a reminder that even in silence, the weight of decisions endures. Would you act differently if you were in that room? Don't blink. Or you'll miss the lessons of the unraveling.